So before you get started this morning, the first thing you need to do is go to brackets.io and download Brackets. It is a text editor that we'll be using to write code for the sites. If you already have another text editor like Sublime or something like that, you're welcome to use that. This is just a free, decent tool that we can use. So I already have Brackets downloaded, so I'll just open that. So the first thing you'll need to do once you get Brackets opened is come over here to the left to the Getting Started drop down and press Open Folder. You can save your website anywhere on your computer, but you need a folder for your website. You can call it whatever you want and press Open. So now you'll notice I have no files in here because I'm starting with an empty folder. That's what you want. First thing we should do is create a folder called Images. I'm going to be storing our photos in there. Then create a file called index.html. And then create another file called style.css. And now you have the basic structure for your website. So let's start with your index file. This is your index.html file, and the very first thing you want to write out is setting your doc types. You're going to want a left arrow and then an exclamation point, and in caps you want to say doc type HTML. So then down below that you want to create the first element on your page, which will be the HTML element. And then let's add two more elements inside of there. The first one is going to be the head element, and we'll press enter to create some space inside there because we'll be putting things in there. And then drop down and let's create the body element. Okay, so inside the head element we're going to want to link to our style sheet so that the CSS we write will be able to have effect on this page. We're going to create a link element, and we'll say rel equals style sheet. So we're saying the type of element is style sheet, and then we will do an href and link to style.css. And we can close that out. Also above there, let's add a title element. Inside here, you will write the title of your page. We're going to be creating a banner, just a simple banner for your website. Let's just pull up some examples of what a banner might look like. Go to busybusy.com. This right here is what I mean by banner, right? There's a big image or video in the background with text over the top. This is a little fancy because there's a video and there's animated text. You can have simple banners like, go to TrueTake Media. We have a full height, full width banner here. GraniteLionSellers.com has a slightly smaller banner, but still a banner nonetheless. BasicAmericanSupply.com also has a banner. So hopefully that gives you somewhat of an idea of what I mean by creating a banner. Let's jump back into our index.html file. First thing you're going to want to do is create a div. And we'll give that a class of banner. Oops. Close that out. Drop the closing tag down. And inside there, let's create an H group. And inside the H group, we'll create an H1. And inside H1, we will add your title. Now that we've got a little bit of text inside this web page, let's make sure to, well, first of all, save your changes. If you have any, there's a little dot next to a file up here. That means that there are unsaved changes. So just get in the habit of doing Control S to save your changes all the time. We can click up here and say File, Save, or Save All. Now come over here to this right menu and click this little lightning icon. That's going to be our live preview. That'll open up a tab in Chrome, And you can see our text is there. Let's drag this over and drag this over here. Oops. Okay, we'll open that again. You want to make sure that this is yellow because that means that you'll end up with a live preview. So let me show you what I mean by live preview. If you make changes to your files, they'll show up immediately, which saves you a lot of time because then you don't have to save your changes, go over and reload the page. You can also have live preview on your style sheet. So we can set the color of this to, let's do F16, which is bright pink, and you can see your changes immediately. So you want to make sure live preview is working because you'll get work done way faster that way. Okay, so before we get into styling this, I want to, obviously we're building a banner, right? So we're going to need a background image. So let's just go to Google and search for a background image. Choose whatever theme you want. I'm going to go with potatoes. Let's see if there's anything worthwhile here. This looks like it could be a good background image. If you look here, it's 1100 pixels wide, 622 tall. That should be okay. Let's save image as, and you're going to want to make sure you download this to your website folder. There it is. Go into your images folder and let's give this a name that we can remember. Potatoes. I feel like I'm spelling that wrong. Oh well. Alright, so we've got our background image. Let's go through and start styling this banner. First thing we want to do is target the class that we gave it here, right? Created a div with the class of banner. So let's go into style sheet and say banner. So let's apply that background image that we just downloaded. We'll say background image, URL, brackets, and then go to images, and then go to potatoes. And then close that out with a semicolon. And you can see here, we definitely have a background image there, but that's not looking like what we want it to look like just yet. Let's drop down and do text align center, semicolon to close it out. And that text is not standing out very well, so let's make the color white. So now the text is standing out pretty well. We still want to make this banner bigger. So let's set the height to 72%, semicolon, and of course that doesn't actually work. And the reason why is because we set that to a percentage. If we had set that to pixels, it would have worked, right? If we'd set it to 720 pixels, it works. So we're targeting that element correctly, but percentage for some reason is not working. So why is that happening? The reason that when we set that to 72%, it's not filling up 72% of the screen like we would expect is that when you set the height of an element to a percentage, it tries to be that percentage of its parent element. So if we go back to our HTML, you'll see the banner's parent element is the body, but it doesn't know how tall the body is. So we can just go in and tell it how tall the body needs to be. So we can say body height 100%, semicolon to close out, and that still doesn't work. The reason why is because, again, the body is inside of the HTML element, right? And it doesn't know how high the HTML element is, so we've got to also set HTML to be height 100%. And now the HTML element is 100% height of your browser. Body is 100% the height of the HTML element, and banner is 100% or 72% the height of the body. and now it's working the way you would expect. Another issue I have here is you've got this little white space here, which looks absolutely terrible. So I believe the reason why is that most browsers are setting a margin on the HTML elements. So we're going to set some universal styling here. And this little asterisk represents every element on the page, and any code you write in here is going to affect every element on the page. So we're going to set margin to 0, and we're going to set padding to 0, which solves our problem there. This is already looking a lot better, right? Let's full screen this and see how we like it. Okay, so I see a couple issues here. The first one I believe that we should tackle is the fact that you have a replicating background. We don't want that, right? We want it to stretch and cover the entire banner. So we are going to want to come back in here into the banner, and let's set background size to cover. Semicolon to close it out. So now, regardless of how big or small your screen gets, it's always going to make sure the banner is totally covered, and that means that it will hide whatever part of the image it needs to. You can see if we get too wide, it starts hiding the top and bottom of the image, and if you get too narrow, it starts hiding the left or right of the image, which is what we want. We want the banner to always be 100% covered by the image without skewing the image. Now, another issue I see here is when we get too small, the potatoes disappear, and since our website is all about potatoes, it's not a good thing. We want the potatoes to always show. So we're going to change background position to be right center. So that means it's always going to show the right of the image, and it will hide the left of the image if necessary. So now scroll over and we're still seeing potatoes no matter what size the screen gets, which is perfect. So the next thing we need to fix is this title. That's supposed to be centered vertically as well as horizontally, right? The problem with that is centering it horizontally was really simple, right? You just said text align center and it centered it. There's no way to do that horizontally. Well, there's no simple way to do that. So we're going to have to get tricky here. What I'm going to do is create what we call a pseudo element. And inside there, I'm going to set content to \00A0. The reason we do this is because in some of the older browsers, if we don't do this, then the pseudo element that we just created won't show up. It just won't work. And so this is just a little hack that helps that work. This is an HTML character for a space, I believe. So we just created this element, but we can't see it. So what I'm going to do is set the background color to bright pink so we can see it. You can see it just showed up there. It's pretty small. Let's give it a height of 100%, which of course doesn't work because this by default is an inline element, and we need to set that to be display inline block so that we can actually set the width to, or so that we can actually set the height. There we go. So now this little pseudo element we created. Okay, so we've got this functioning the way we want it to. I think we're going to run into a problem here. I'm having a hard time showing you because that title is so small. So let's come in here and make this title a little bit bigger, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. If you end up on too small of a screen, then that text is going to drop down to another line and your title will disappear, which is not what we want, right? So we need to stop that from happening. The way we do that is by coming back into Banner and saying white space, no wrap. That means that the text can't wrap around to another line. It will just always stay in one solid line all the way across. And there. Even if the text is too big for the screen, it will just hang off the edge rather than dropping down to a new line. So then the thing you need to do is make sure that it doesn't hang off the edge, because you want to still be able to read the title, right? Kind of defeats the purpose if the text is being hidden. So we want to come back down into H group and say, oops, white space normal. There we go. Because the normal functionality is that text drops down to another line if it gets too big for the screen. So we've got that functioning properly. Now we no longer need, we don't want to see this little pink line here, right? So let's set the, actually let's do it right underneath height. Keep similar styles together. So width, we'll set that to 0. There we go. Now it's hidden. Also, just in case, let's get rid of that background color so it's invisible. So it's still there, it's still functioning the way it's supposed to, but it's width 0 and no background color, so you won't be able to see it. So the last thing we need to do to this is we need to style the text, right? Because that doesn't look really great. Let's target banner, do the child selector, H group, child selector, H1. Let's set font. And we're going to set the size to, let's try 24 pixels. Actually, we have to set the weight first. So let's say 900. We'll make it bold. We'll set the line height to 30 pixels. And we'll set the font family to Arial. Then I want them all capitalized. So let's say text transform uppercase. There we go. And that feels a little bit, feels like they're kind of tied together. So let's do letter spacing 2 pixels. No, that's too much. Set it to 1. Save our changes, go back here, and I'm going to change this title to something a little more appropriate. Okay, so we have another problem. This text is not very readable. You end up with these light spots with the potatoes and the sack and everything. Can't really read that text very well. So we could try making the font a little bigger. That might help. Still, it's better, but still doesn't solve our problem. So another thing we can try is giving this a text shadow. Let's go text shadow. First number we're going to set to 0. We don't want it moving left or right. The next number is moving the shadow up or down, so we'll set that to 1 pixel. So the shadow is slightly below the text. The next number we set should be the spread of the shadow, so let's set that to 3 pixels. So it'll be kind of a small shadow. And then let's set the color of the shadow to black. And semicolon to close it out. So now that's much more readable. If you end up with light spots, then it kind of differentiates. All right, now all you need to do is go and build one for yourself.